We're going to trigger the Alpine Stars Tech Air system, but we're doing it manually. This cannot be done in normal circumstances. We have a lead from the back of the airbag system to the laptop where Jenny is over there, and she is going to trigger it, and it will go off, and you'll be able to see what it's like when the airbag goes off. She's only going to trigger it when I say now. Oh. I didn't say now. I said you trigger it when I say now, and I haven't said now. The Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.
Hello and welcome to Adventure Bike TV, where it's slightly chilly and a bit blustery, and we're at Adventure Bike Shop's open day. Now, before we get into the show, I just want to give out a little shout out. So I bumped into a gentleman at Heathrow Terminal 5 Motorcycle Park a couple of weeks ago. Thanks for saying hello. I didn't get your name, but thanks for watching. Now, it's on with the bike review. Now, this month's bike review is something a little bit different. We have already reviewed both these bikes on the show, but we want to take them out on a bit of an adventure.
Tie-down loops to allow extra luggage space are set at a height to ensure the luck is protected from damage. Metal Mule, engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
There's going to be a whole bunch of naysayers out there, and they'll be saying, oh, the KTM 525 is a race bike. You can't go for adventures on it. You need to change the oil too often. The valves need too much maintenance. Well, to you I say, do not knock it until you try it. Now, I met a guy at Hags Bank March Moto Madness this year, and he'd ridden his 450 EXE to Norcap and back. That is a serious bit of riding. Now, I won't try and argue comfort or long distance mile munching, but these bikes will take you to places only lightweight enduro or dual sport bikes can take you. And the 525 will take it all in its stride and make life feel good. Now, because this was an adventure, I had to take some luggage. So I had Krieger's older style enduro packs and a US 20 dry bag on top. And the camera and drone were in my backpack. Now, if we'd not been filming, we could have gone lighter. And if we'd not been prepared for camping, we could have gone single pack. But the luggage is designed for these bikes and it didn't affect my riding, apart from the rucksack, which I hated because it really unbalanced me. But that's what the filming does. Now, this is a 12-year-old bike, but they were built from quality components originally, and it shows. Yeah, it looks like it's been ridden, but nothing is worn out. The PDS rear suspension is simple to set up, and the front and rear soaked up everything we could throw at them. And we threw quite a bit, from snow and temperatures well below freezing to rocks, mud and water crossings. This bike made mincemeat of every trail, and its only limitation was me. I'd popped a couple of TKC 80s on the bike as I knew we'd be doing a few road miles, and they worked a treat. I could cruise at 65 or 70 comfortably if I wanted to, and on the dry back roads, I was having a hoot. Before we set off, I had the tiniest, most weeny, almost impossible to see pinprick of doubt about the bike's suitability as a proper adventure bike. Well, that has been well and truly plugged. With a long distance fuel tank, I could easily do 120 miles between stops, and I've heard of people doing a lot more. If we'd gone further, I might have had to change oil. Well, I would have had to change oil, and yes, it'll need the valves checking every 3,000 kilometres or so. But that's an easy job to learn, and they're both a small price to pay for an adventure bike perfectly suited to trail-oriented trips.
Okay, so if there were naysayers to Graham's 525, I can't imagine the reaction I'm going to get when I say that I have completely fallen in love with the Freeride 250F as an adventure bike. To be honest, I was worried about taking this bike. I mean, we had a lot to take, and I wasn't sure the subframe could handle it. I used the large Endurostan Blizzard saddlebags, and they worked great, and there were no issues with the subframe whatsoever. Of course, I also had a rucksack which was so heavy. In it was a Sony FS700, 2 lenses, a map book, 18 camera batteries, 2 microphones, lights, tripods, and a whole host of charging, docks, cables, and other bits of filming kit. I know everyone is right now playing their tiny little violins for me, but that is a lot of weight to have on my back, and it really affects the way I rode because my centre of gravity was way too far back. So it could take the weight of me and all my luggage and my saddlebags. Now that's a tick in the good box. But actually every time there was a box I thought it couldn't tick, it surprised me. On the trails it is amazing. It flattered my riding, giving me confidence over big rocks and going through mud and water. Everything really just felt so easy on this bike. Even with the luggage on, it was so light, so easy to pick up if I dropped it, and I had no problems and was nowhere near as tired as I expected, or when I used to ride things like my Triumph 800 off-road. Now, the tank range isn't great, as it only holds 5.5 litres, but you know what, on the UK TET, you're never far from a petrol station, so even that wasn't really a big issue. There was one big niggle though. To fuel the bike, you have to lift up the seat. Not a big issue until you have to remove saddlebags every time. But I wasn't in a hurry. We were travelling, stopping to meet people and chat, so an extra 30 seconds to remove my bags and another 30 seconds to put them back on, it was not the end of the world. However, what really surprised me about this bike is how much character the bike had. Partly because of those little niggles, and I was genuinely sad to part with it. Nathan recently declared that he thought his Himalayan was the best adventure bike out there at the moment. But I have to disagree. For me, on the Trans-European Trail, where most of the riding is off-road, the Freeride 250F is the perfect adventure bike for me.
The Metal Mule Max Pannier is the only pannier to use a silicon seal to ensure they're watertight to IP66 classification. Metal Mule, engineered to be different. Proud sponsors of the bike reviews on Adventure Bike TV.
If you want to see more of the trip, in fact if you want to see the whole of the adventure, you can do so later in the summer, probably June, July time, on Together TV. Now it's time for Under the Visor, and we have Mark Willsmore, the owner of the Ace Cafe. Don't ride here. Ride here. Explore new horizons with Moto Freight. Proud sponsors of Under the Visor.
The Ace CAF reunion came about, in essence, because I and a peer group, the interest in what was definitely yesteryear, having old bikes, Triumphs and black leather jackets, would come out here, sit on the wall of this tyre depot and moan the fact that it was gone and it should be reopened, and why doesn't someone reopen it, we've got nowhere to go. And things came together really at the tail end of '93 when, as a member of the Triumph Owners Motorcycle Club, West Middlesex branch, one of the guys there, quite a bit older than me, who did used to come here, he asked me one evening at the club whether I knew when the cafe shut. Really, he was kind of taking a mickey out of me at one level. And the other thing is that at that time, I was a bit of a Mr. Organiser. We were organising trips on bikes off to the Isle of Man, off to the Dutch TT, off to the Boldor. And those trips grew and grew with the passage of time. This is clearly before the internet and before mobile phones and all the modern tech we have. And we organised these trips, and they sort of grew to about 30 riders. And to nurse these guys across Europe and all the issues that arose. It's a bit of a Mr. Organiser, and the guy at Triumph Owners he knew that as well. When he put that question, did I know when it shut? Which I didn't. And he then eventually, taken mickey, laughing at me, not knowing this hallowed place that I and many of my age group at that time saw in with a really an iconic way, bemoaning its loss. He then said it shut in September '69. So what, said I. And he kept on at me to think about it. And eventually I did think about it. And after a short while of using these digits, I realised that the following year, '94, it would be 25 years since the place had closed. And with that was the light bulb moment. Reunion. Shared that around the club, and everyone was, yeah, I'll help, how, what, etc., etc. And at the time, I was a serving copper in the mountain branch, riding horses. Big interest to this day with motorbikes. And I thought to myself, right, I know two other coppers who are in the traffic division, close by here, who are in their old Triumphs. I'll speak to, I could see a path to organising this with relative ease, this reunion. And with the benefit of hindsight, that reunion, in fact, did all come together with relative ease. Speak to the owners of the property, speak to the occupiers, the tyre company, speak to the local authorities, speak to the police, and all came together that weekend, which we still do this to this day in September, the Ace CAF reunion. First one in '94, sunshine, thousands and thousands of bikes. Brilliant day. Well, that bright idea of holding that first reunion was followed by the second bright idea of how to get the place reopened. And the reunion seemed to be straightforward. And then it's a case of fathoming out, right, go back to the owners of the site. What unfolds there, in effect, is to persuade them to sell it. Enter an agreement with them about a purchase price and a period of time where it wouldn't be offered for sale to anybody else, i.e. by end of that time frame of 2 years, I think it was, put up or shut up. The next port of call was the local authority, Brent,
Brent Council, planning permission to reopen as once was a cafe. That's quite a lengthy process. Never embarked on anything like that before, but with the help of friends, it's remarkable what a common cause can bring about. Friends who was an architect drew up outline plans, and Brent Council were enormously helpful in all the different departments there, and a goodly number of the officers, of course, remembered the place from their youth, so they were very keen to see it reopen. And eventually the planning approval, I was there for the council meeting that evening, and when it came to the vote of the councillors, a goodly number of them put both hands up. And that planning approval came through just in time prior to the agreement, the 2-year agreement, coming to an end. So then there's the first big bullet to bite, which was my coming out of the police, robbing my family with a view to buying the freehold. Well, the short answer is, where there's vehicles, be they bikes, cars, people want to get together and talk about them, show them off, brag about how good a mechanic they are or how good a driver or rider they are. So it's that common interest, and where vehicles are, people want somewhere to meet. And it might sound quite extraordinary, but it's on almost at least a weekly basis, someone from somewhere is contacting us. Clearly today it's via email, overwhelmingly by email, with a view to, can we open an ACE in, wherever it might be? And then you have to sort of drill down on with the experience and knowledge you've gained here. Yeah, we'll look at a proposal, we'll look at the location, we'll look at whether it's in our view it'll work or not. And plainly, if there's a view that it won't work, we won't get involved. But that's the short answer, is why and how. It's because people enjoy their vehicles and want to share that passion wherever they are. Yeah, from teens, yeah.
So, what kind of bikes do you like? What kind of bike have you got now?
I love a whole array of motorbikes. You know, I've become increasingly convinced as the years have gone by that if we could, we'd all be Jay Leno's with huge sheds just stuffed full of these things. But all of us in our different ways have to compromise, whether it's to do with money, space, etc., etc. Yeah, the latest Panigales through to classics, and classics here. That by and large, my volition is invariably kit that is for purpose. It might be impractical, but kit that's designed for a purpose has, for me, terrific appeal. Be it, you know, the quintessential track bike, the off-road crossers, classics as you see here. Almost any machine or vehicle for that matter is pretty much the same with cars. If it looks like it's built to do something and do that well, that appeals to me. Living with it is a totally different thing, of course, and that's where certainly the start of compromises for me begin to enter the equation. Well, the trips, certainly before embarking on what I call chasing the ace, preceding 10, 15 years, it would be trips to the Bol d'Or down in south of France in September. I'm trying to think, the circuit, Paul Ricard. It's the annual exodus of Northern Europe down to the last bit of sun, as it were, of the season in September, for 24-hour racing down there. Fantastic trips. And the trip would invariably be either a couple of days down there and then a week or so traipsing around Europe to come back, or a week or so traipsing around Europe and winding up at the Bol and then a blast back. Similarly, the Dutch TT, So I've had the good fortune to be of an age group that saw the wall come down in the eastern part of Europe, Berlin Wall and all that, hot on the heels of it coming down. Bikes out there in Hungary, Slovakia, Poland, and sadly since the pursuit of here haven't done that sort of thing. I've whizzed to the occasional bike show in Milan or in Paris and events in Germany, but I haven't done the sort of big trips as I once did. But then I'm not as young as I was either, and neither is my wife, and the things we once used to enjoy are perhaps a little harder to do these days. What next for the Ace Cafe? Well, I hope that motorcycling, I believe it will, I hope it continues to thrive and flourish. Motoring certainly is, cars the bigger number on the roads, and we certainly host far more car meets here than we do bike meets. Things are changing with the advance of technology and electric vehicles, which there's arguably, some would say juries are out, others would say no, not for me. But anything that has got a bit of go and a bit of oomph to it, I think we'll always find an attraction and a generation will discover the thrill of speed. In my age group, that thrill is a smell, it's a sound as well as a physical movement. Clearly with electric there's a different sound and a different smell. You might be able to spin up the rubber, but there's not the fumes smell of four-stroke or two-stroke motor. One of the qualities that, it's a year or two ago now at TT, it's the first year that TT hosted the electric bike race. I can't remember the year now, but it's 1 or 2 years ago. And what struck me with that particular race, where it was only a one-lap race, but afterwards the teams with their machines all assembled in Noble's Park, just at the back of grandstand. So I thought I'd wander over and have a look. And as I was sort of walking towards this array of teams, what really first struck me, was all the guys were young. They were all kids, all university age group, from all over the world. Next thing was getting engaged with one particular team in conversation. A team, I regret to say I can't remember which university, but it's one of the sort of West London unis with an engineering department, and those youngsters were coming up here in any case and recognised me and get yakking. And I quipped to this assembled group about the noise, i.e. the lack of it on an electric vehicle. But the rider was there, who's of course a pucker TT rider. You can't just get on a bike and go and ride around the TT. It has to be a recognised rider. And I can't remember who it was now. Again, that's an age thing. But he turned as quick as a flash and said, "No, it's brilliant. I've never heard the crowd before. All he's ever heard is wind noise and the sound of the screaming engine." And all of a sudden I realised, actually, these electric vehicles may give us a route to another source of enjoyment, sounds we wouldn't otherwise hear, and clearly can be pleasures and joy found there. So I've yet to experience it myself with my daily ride in the Triumph, using through the traffic down here. But these qualities of vehicles are things that we like to share, and provided people have these vehicles, I'm sure the Ace and Aces elsewhere will thrive and flourish. It's what we enjoy doing. It's the speed thrills at the end of the day, whether on or off road.
Don't ride here. Ride here. Explore new horizons with Moto Freight, proud sponsors of Under the Visor. Fascinating to get the insight into the Ace Cafe. I remember driving past it before Mark bought it, and it was the tyre place, so absolutely fascinating to hear how it all happened. Now it's time for a break.
The Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.
Hello and welcome to our second Metal Mule destruction test. Now today we're going to be shooting them. So we're going to start off easy. The first thing we're going to be shooting with them is this air pistol. Now this air pistol here fires little metal pellets using a gas cylinder, and let's see what kind of damage this does. Okay, a tiny dent from that. So let's up our game a bit and let's go for this. A 2.2 air rifle. Let's see how this does. Okay, so definitely a small dent there, but to be honest, we need to up our game even more. So next is this. It's a bow and arrow, and we're using here a round tip arrowhead. So let's see what damage this can do. Okay, so the bow and arrow did make a tiny little hole. I doubt water could even really get through that, but it's easily pluggable. But this is a destruction test, so we need to up our game again. And now we have the crossbow. And the crossbow fires these darts, which are very pointy. Okay, a slightly bigger hole because of the pointed tip, but still nothing massively to worry about, I think, and actually shows how strong these panniers are. Now, for something a little different, we're now going to use this. Now, before you panic, no, this isn't a real rifle. This is an airsoft rifle. It is a high-end airsoft rifle that fires at 320 feet per second, and it fires little plastic BBs. Now, this won't do very much to the pannier with a single shot, but what this does have is a fully automatic mode. Okay, so realistically, none of those have done any real terrifying damage to the pannier. As I said, we've got two tiny little holes that could easily be patched up on a trip, and realistically, when are you going to have people shooting arrows at your panniers? If you are having people shoot arrows at your panniers, you've probably got some bigger things to worry about. So join us next time when we're really going to ramp up the tests. We're going to be chopping wood on top of a pannier and then using that wood to create a fire in said pannier and see if we can cook some stuff on it. See you then.
The Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Greater adventure.
Welcome back. Now, I have a little confession to make. I'm just a little bit excited about the next segment. It's brand new. It's top riding tips. Hello and welcome to Top Riding Tips, a brand new segment for Adventure Bike TV. Now the clue is in the name. This is a segment which is about tips. This is not a complete training school. This is some top riding tips for you, which we're going to be doing every month for the next year. Now we have assumed some basics like you know how to pick your bike up off the ground because there are so many training videos out there about that, and that you are aware of switching off your ABS, etc., and turning your bike to an off-road mode. But I have ridden here today on my bike in all the road settings. So I'm going to get Mark just to talk me through some of the key differences about getting my bike set up right for riding off-road. Then we're going to move on to this month's top tip, which is what happens if you can't get your centre stand or your side stand down because the ground's too soft or too muddy. How on earth do you actually get onto your bike?
Okay, Graham, this is the absolute epitome of what a setting is on the road and off-road, and it's this simple. And we've not even looked at it, so it might make a mug of me now. But basically my bike is set up so it's soft. It's nice and pliable.
Yeah.
Got plenty of movement on the suspension. Your bike, you rode here with all of your panniers on. Just watch your helmet, mate, that I don't knock that off. It's solid.
Yeah. I can see it, yeah.
See?
The difference, yeah. Massive difference.
That's the difference. There is no movement in it. So we need to adjust the preload, which we can do quite easily. Knock it down so we've got 30 odd mil of movement, static sag we call it. Okay, and then have a look at the tyre pressures and knock some pressure out of the tyres. Even into the 20s, okay? It's wet today, so we're gonna need a big tyre footprint. And our suspension needs to be soft because it's wet.
Yeah.
Suspension that's too hard will override the tyres.
Yeah.
You're not going to get any grip. Okay? So that's what we'll do.
Great.
Happy?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Okay, Graham. Getting on and off the bike. A lot of people take it for granted. A lot of people get in trouble doing it. So there's a couple of ways which we'll go through now. Okay?
Yep.
First thing is flip the side stand up. Open the bars so that you've got plenty of room. 2 fingers on the front brake, lean the bike to you a little bit. Simply throw your leg over. Still on the front brake, it's not going to roll away. It's safe.
Okay.
Okay? Biggest problem with that is if you've got loads of luggage on. Top box, panniers, difficult to get on. So a simple way to do it is leave the side stand down. I don't like this, but if you've got luggage on, there's not a lot you can do about it. And simply push your leg over, sit in position, and then the trouble is a lot of weight on the bike makes the side stand hard to flick up. So then you have to move the bike away to do so.
Yep.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, Graham, so that being said, let me push this out of the way. You have a go. Let's see how we get on.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Graham.
Bars open.
Bars open, side stand up, front brake. That's it. One
Right
step.
towards me. And over.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
It's that easy, yeah.
The second one is actually very, very difficult for me because, as regular viewers know, I've got dicky hips. So for me to swing my leg over there is near on impossible. So Mark.
Okay. Well, I have got another way we can have a look at, which is a little bit more showy-offy, as they say. Do you want me to show you that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, Graham. So there is a nice way to get on the bike, which looks quite trick, but that takes a little bit of practice. And also, the easy way to practice to start with is to start the bike in gear and walk with it. That is also a good way of getting out of trouble if you've crashed, you've fallen off, you're in a lot of mud. You can walk the bike out with that technique.
Yeah.
Okay? Okay then, mate, so that being said, the easy way to get on, I think, and it's a trick looking way, is like this. It really is that simple, as long as it's in control.
Okay.
Okay? So you're going to give this a go, Graham?
Yep.
Okay, let's have a look. Side stand up. Plenty of clutch control, okay? Look it up, plenty of clutch control, nice and easy. There you go. Well done, mate. First time. Nice one. It's the clutch that's king. Yeah?
Not my most graceful effort, but...
No, but it's not bad. Okay? It's the clutch that's king.
Yeah.
Okay? If you get your 1 foot on, it's timing. It's just good timing. Bit of practice, no problem at all.
Cool.
Okay? Job done.
Brilliant. So that's the first in a whole year's worth of top riding tips. And we're going to be covering stuff like riding on gravel, riding on rocks, riding up hills, down hills. And next month, we're going to be talking about riding on mud. Now it's time for film school. Tom is continuing his wonderful education of all of us about how to edit.
Hello and welcome to this month's Film School. Today we're going to be looking at the sequence which is within your main editing package, and we're going to be looking at the kind of stages we go through to build up your sequence. And we're going to start specifically with sound. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to go back to a project I've already done, which is the Teapot 1 DVD. Now I'm just going to talk about the very short kind of start sequence I made, and we're going to look at the process I went through to build that sequence. So the first thing you need to do is create your sequence. So I've already got a sequence up on this window here, which is my previous edit, but we're going to create a new one. So we're going to go to File, New, and then we're going to enter Sequence. In here we have a whole load of presets that we can use. I film most of my stuff in AVC HD, 25 frames a second, 1080p. Occasionally I use 4K, in which case I tend to use my Assassin, which is a separate recorder. But we can edit in there. You can also go into settings here and you can change any of these to make it more specific to your film setup. But basically what you want to do is match your settings to whichever camera you filmed the bulk of your stuff on. And also at this point you will name your sequence. So it's always nice to name it. So we'll call this Test 4 ABTV. And we'll press OK, and that creates a new sequence. So I have my sequence open ready here. I have all my files that I've already imported, as we spoke about last month, here ready to go. Now what I want to do is concentrate on sound first, because I already have an idea of what I want to do. I want to hint at Bruce as a person. I want to find out about him before I find out who he is. Now I'm going to do that through a range of shots that show bits of his life, bits of him without showing his face. And I'm going to do that with him talking about certain bits. So I'm looking for these sound clips that I can use to hint at what he's done and why he's done it. So obviously I've got hours and hours worth of footage from when we went to his house and we recorded stuff. So if we bring up one of these things, one of these clips here, and we can scrub through it and we can play, and when we play we can obviously hear what he's saying.
You soon realised that at that point certainly every man, woman and child was saying they're going to go off around the world, and a lot of people were wanting to do it on motorbikes because of long way round.
Now we're trying to find these interesting kind of snippets, and there is a lot of stuff to get through, a lot of footage. I mean, I think we recorded over 2 hours of interview. Now, if you get home and you start editing immediately, you'll remember where those little snippets are. You will have picked them up. In fact, sometimes what I do is I'll sit there with a little notepad, and as I film them, I'll just be going, okay, this time code, this time code, this time code. He said these little interesting things. So what I can do then is I can pick these little things out that he's done and kind of decide which ones I think are best as I listen to them. So if we find a nice little sound bite we like,
people look at the bike in horror when they see it, you know, because she's battered. She's known as the Beast, and she was my backbone, you know. We've been through a lot together, and when I go out, I find myself now going out into the garage. Might just be going outdoors to go and grab a hammer or something, but I can't help but stop and look at her. And every little battle scar that she's got all over her tells a story, you know. It brings a little flashback.
So we can find the bit we like, and that's where we can then trim it down in our main source window. So just the little trim buttons here, and it will just trim the length. Now at the start there was also a little bit of me talking, so I'm just going to listen to that back. Just me saying okay when you're ready, so cut that out. And all we've done is we've dragged it and dropped it into our timeline. And what you'll see now is that we have here, we have the video file, and there's this double line here, and then all the audio is underneath. There is always more room for audio because you have stereo, or sometimes 5:1, sometimes surround sound. So you'll always have a lot more kind of audio tracks than you will your visual tracks. So we've got this in place now, and we're going to go through and we're going to import all of the little sound clips that we think are great. So I've now gone through and selected all the sound clips I want, and I've kept the video in just in case I need them. So I've trimmed them all to length, so the right length. Sometimes I've cut out the ums. When you do cut out things like ums, you just need to make sure you leave a decent amount of space so it doesn't kind of cut too directly. Cut out the but don't close the gap, if that makes sense. But in this case I wanted it to feel more real, so I was actually leaving them in because I felt that it gave a bit more emotion across when we had it.
Was perfect. Best way to describe her. Always there for you. For me and my brother, everyone that knew her. I couldn't ask for any more.
Now I could have cut out that but in this case I think it actually adds some more emotion to what he's talking about. Even if we end up not seeing his face at this point, I still think it's a really strong audio clip to use. The next thing I tend to do is then I look for an audio track to go with it. So what I've done is I've found a track that I think complements the video that I'm going to be making really well. Simple piano, and it's uplifting while at the same time having a kind of tone of sadness about it, and I think it's a nice inspirational yet simple piece that will complement what we're seeing on screen, not take away from what we're seeing on screen. That's quite important. Now what I'm going to do, all I need to do now is pull in the audio track. So I just press on the little audio here, drag it in, and that will drag onto an audio track. Now I'm not quite sure where I'm going to place it yet, and where I'm going to place kind of the audio around that. So I'm just kind of preparing everything and getting everything in place, checking then that the sound levels are right with the audio over the top, which again is very, very important.
Mum was perfect. Best way to describe her.
Now at the moment the audio is a bit loud, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go up to audio clip mixer up here. Now when you click on this, it's going to give you audio inputs and stuff for here. So what you can do is change all of them as you go. So obviously channel 1 that we have here is my music. So as it's playing, I look at my audio levels over here, and I want to keep them between kind of -6 and 9. But when someone starts talking, it needs to get less. So we'll just bring that down.
Always there for you.
Bringing it right down so that we can make sure that we hear what Bruce is saying and it's not being covered up by the music, but the music is still there.
I just wanted to make her, I'm a dad.
Okay, I'm quite happy with those levels. So now we've got to a point where we've got basically our audio sorted out to a very base level. We have the audio track that we like, the music that we think complements the video we're trying to do, and we've got the interview parts. Now, the reason I think it's important to do these first is because you can make a gorgeous video in terms of its look, and then you'll go to the audio and go, right, well, I want this bit of audio and this little kind of snippet of sound, and they'll go in and they might not fit, or you'll have more audio than video or far too much video for the audio. The other thing is it's sometimes quite nice to match what the person is talking about on camera to the visuals that you're seeing. So if someone is saying something like, oh, my bike, Bruce says about his bike being a bit tatty. Now at that point, if we showed a cup of coffee, it wouldn't make any sense. But if we show the bike, that kind of works in well. And you need that audio in place first, so you know where you're going to go with it. So we're by no means finished with audio, but this is the first part of my editing process. Just get those audio parts, the music, and more importantly, the interview there in place. And then hopefully the rest of it will follow. And next month we'll talk about adding in the video. And the month after that, we will talk about finalising it all. See you soon.
My excitement for this show is continuing unabated because we have another new segment. It's Bike Build, and it's Tom and it's Sam.
Hello and welcome to a brand new segment on Adventure Bike TV. Now this month is the start of our brand new bike build. Cue credits. So we have done bike builds in the past on the show. Graham did a budget bike build where he had £1,000 to build an adventure bike. And of course we did the Triumph Tiger 800 rally build, which went spectacularly well. And that bike is now travelling around South America, having a fantastic adventure with Aaron, I believe his name is. So we are looking at doing a brand new bike build because it was really popular the last two. So people have been asking us for a while to do one, and we're going to do one. And I don't have a huge amount of money and a huge amount of budget in the show. So we're kind of going halves on this one with my friend, Sam.
Hello.
You might recognise Sam. He's been on Under the Visor before. Him and his wife did a round the world trip on KTM 690s.
That's right, yeah.
And he's a friend of mine, lives not too far from me, so we're going to work on this build together, go halves on it. And the first thing we've obviously got to do is talk about what kind of criteria we're looking at for this build, and also what bike we want to start with. So in terms of criteria, we've basically figured that we can get together £4,000.
Yep, that's right.
So we've got £4,000 to play with. Now, with that £4,000, we're going to use the majority of that on buying a bike. And then we are going to use, sorry to say, the Adventure Bike TV contacts. We're going to try and blag as much as we can to make this a really cool original machine. Now, we don't really have an idea of what we want to come out of this bike yet. We're not sure whether we want to. Both me and Sam love the rally look to a bike.
That's right.
So I think it's going to end up being that kind of way inclined. But
So
overall, we
no
want
baskets on the front.
no
Right.
baskets. ET just sitting
No.
there.
Yeah. Okay.
Although
That's fine.
that's quite cool. So yeah, so this is what we are trying to kind of figure out today. It's the criteria you're going for. So Sam,
Yes.
$4,000 to buy a bike. Now my
Interesting one.
gut feeling, having reviewed one not too long ago, would be Yamaha 660. You can pick up some really good Yamaha 660s
True.
for that kind of 3.5 to 4 grand range.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot you can do to a Tenere, 660 Tenere, but for me, whatever you do, it still looks like a 660 Tenere. There's not much change to it. I personally, I would say KTM 990 Adventure.
Okay, you are... He's a KTM fan. He's a bit like Graham. He loves his KTM. Don't be wrong, I do love KTMs. I do have an affinity with Triumphs, but I like a whole range of things.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't like a particularly big engine. In fact, I never tend to go over 800 cc's. So, I mean, the 990 I know is a good bike. I've ridden one. Because it's got the fuel injection, there's quite a lot of oomph compared to the 950. But what about that as a base bike, a 950? Why the 990, not the 950?
950, you've got the carburetors on there, and I know there are people purists out there who say the carburetors are better, but having to change the needle and jets and stuff, it's just too much of a ball ache. Whereas fuel injection's been around since World War II, it's tried and tested, you don't have to do anything, no moving parts, bosh, job done.
So you think it's more reliable?
I think it's more reliable, and it's just easier to mess around with.
Okay, so let's step back from that and say, if yours is a 990, I'm thinking 660, what would be our kind of joker card, if you like? What would be something that we haven't considered? What about a brand new bike?
Brand new bike.
$4,000. What can you get for $4,000 brand new?
Well, there is the new Himalayan.
New Himalayan.
But again, not really.
I think that's just over $4,000 though, isn't it? That wouldn't come in our budget unless we pull some strings.
Well, you've got.
Nathan swears by it. Nathan's totally in love with his.
Yes. Is it a rally style bike?
That is true, I suppose.
I wouldn't. I can't see any way of making that bike, no offense to people who have one, sexy enough for me.
And to be fair, the Himalayan for me, I'm large, I have big calves. When I stand up on that bike, my feet get pushed off the pegs. So if I can't stand up on a bike, then okay, we're all out of Himalayan. And to be honest, I don't really feel like we're particularly getting the spirit of things if we buy a brand new bike anyway.
No. I think if you can pick up some decent second-hand bikes out there with a lot on them, and yeah, I mean, as I said, KTM for me, purely for the fact I've got pictures on my wall of the Mione rally bike.
The thing is, you have a 990.
I do have a 990, yes.
So what you're saying is, you want a second 990.
That would be nice. Who doesn't want more than one bike?
I mean, I can see some benefits to that, because one, we would have, whatever we do to this bike, we've got another bike that we can go and look at, see
You're
how
not taking
things are
parts
done.
off it, mind.
Donor bike, I'm thinking donor bike.
Yeah. No, there is.
Okay, I see that. I think, I understand what you're saying about the 660 as well, because I think it's a fantastic bike, but it's kind of already there, and there aren't a huge amount of aftermarket parts you can buy for it, other than your basics. Yeah, you've got. It's just not sexy, is it?
No,
it's not sexy. It's a good bike. It's a great bike.
Yeah,
it's just not.
I mean, there are aftermarket kits for the CRFs, the 250s, the 450s, but at the end of the day, it just looks like if the kits that come with it are 250s with a rally fairing, I think, it still looks like a 250.
And I think the other thing you've got to bear in mind is if we are trying to build a bike that I mean, we both, as I said, we like the rally look, but a bike that can be an adventure bike.
Yeah.
And any adventure bike these days, we have to admit, is going to do huge amounts of tarmac. You can't get away from it because the world doesn't have enough off-road left. I mean, for instance, the TET is fantastic, but a lot of the TET, as we've just discovered, you know, especially at kind of April, May time, is going to be quite difficult on a bigger bike. So, I mean, you have to bear in mind that you might have to do a couple of 100, 300, 400 miles on tarmac, and you want it to be comfortable, and a 250 can do it, but who wants to sit at kind of 65 with a screaming engine?
Well, exactly. And I think also, as I said, something like a 990 or a bigger CC bike can do pretty much most stuff a smaller engine bike can. I mean, it's
with a good rider.
it's never the bike. It's always the rider. So I mean, this is why. Yeah, I think. Hey, what's a couple of 100 cc's between friends? You know.
Okay. My other thing is, I don't think we can get a 990 for $4,000.
It'll take a lot of work.
Okay, I'll make a deal with you.
Okay.
If we can find a 990 for $4,000,
okay,
we'll do that bike. If we can't, we look for a Yamaha 660.
Okay, everyone heard that? I think that sounds like a deal.
Yeah?
Yeah. Shake on that.
Right, now we need to go and search. So, Auto Trader?
I think so.
Hours and hours of browsing on Auto Trader. And obviously, as well as the budget constraints, we've also got time constraints. So we will have a bike. No matter what we've done, we will find a bike and have bought a bike for the next episode. And then we'll go from there.
I think so. Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Well, we'll see you. It's a bit of a random first bike build, but it's an important one. You can't just kind of pluck a bike out of thin air.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, once we've found the bike that we want, that's when we'll start planning what we're actually going to do with it. I think we will struggle to get a 990 for $4,000 that's working.
You see, that wasn't the part of the plan. Okay. No.
And I think we're probably going to end up with a 660 Tenere. But we'll see.
We will see.
We'll see on the next show. Thank you very much. If you've got any suggestions or any pointers, please get them to us. We will look at them, and if we like them, use them to help our arguments, and if we don't like them, we ignore them completely. So we will see you next month, where we will have a bike. Cue credits. Bah!
For those of you who were expecting to see Travel Journal, it hasn't gone. It will be back, but we're not going to be doing it every single month. We'll just be having it when we have great videos to show. Now, it's a slightly historic moment for us. It's the end of our 4th season. So join us next month when we'll be starting Season 5 of Adventure Bike TV.
The Adventure Bike Shop, proud sponsors of Adventure Bike TV. Rubbish adverts.
Great at adventure.